So I want to start by doing something I never do. I'm going to draw your attention to the graphic of my title page. Because this needs to be lost on no one. You see what's happening here? See, there's a person there, and they pushed over a block. And that block has pushed over another block that's a little larger. And then the next one is being touched right there, and it's about to go. You see what's happening? You all clear about what's happening? All those blocks are going to come down. And what's going to happen at the end of that circle? Going to clobber that guy, right? That's brilliant, because that's how it works. And we go, oh, we didn't do that. I didn't do that. No, it happened without you, right? Yes. I don't think so. I don't think so. Causes and conditions, that's what we want to talk about. And where that starts is that over the last couple of weeks, I've had quite a number of people ask me the same question. What's the V in the circle? And I always start by saying it's not a V. It's an action thing. So, obviously you didn't need it because there's another one on the wall. But for those that are watching online, this is our teaching symbol. And the best way to describe it is not like that, but it's to start like that, explaining that there are three aspects of spirit, that the circle represents the infinite, absolute presence of the divine. And what you've got there is a circle with two lines in it, which creates and delineates three sections. The top one being the invisible creative power of the universe. The middle one being what Holmes called mind, but it's also called law. I like law. Not that it's law like human laws, because human laws are set up so that if you break them, then you get the result of that. You cannot break spiritual law. It works perfectly all the time. It just depends on what you put into the law. So you are at the top of this thing because you are the invisible presence of the divine. And when you think something, it goes through that law into the bottom section, which is physical form. Just that simple. But knowing that is like knowing how the pieces on a chessboard move. But that doesn't mean you can play chess. You got to really apply this to real life. So you've got to use this with the V, because the V is the action. It's not a V. Those two lines, connected lines there, are the action. And what it's describing there is it starts at the top. That's the invisible presence with a thought or a belief or something that initiates the law, impresses the law, as Holmes said, which means the line goes through the law down to the bottom, comes to a point. And that point it comes to is the creation that was created based on that idea. Just that simple. So why do you need something going back up? Because obviously everything that happens in physical form in our lives, we observe it. So it goes back up into our thinking at the top, and you'll notice that line kind of starts turning to the side, because what's actually happening is that it's going to happen again. Because we've decided that whatever that idea was is real. And we create it over and over and over again. Someone described that to me like you were looking at an EKG, and how the lines go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. It's the same way here. This is a constant moving thing. And that's what that means. Pretty simple, huh? Well, if we would only apply it. So that's our teaching symbol. And that's like the beginning point of understanding what this philosophy is teaching us. Our philosophy does not create this. We've discovered it. And we say that this is the way it works. Not because we like it, but because it's the way it works. So we use it. So really, this whole idea that Holmes had with understanding the workings of the universe mostly came from one of his teachers, somebody that I don't know that they ever met. They were alive at the same time, but Thomas Troward lived quite a bit before Holmes, and he was in England and India, and I don't think they ever met. But Holmes read the words of Thomas Troward, and it changed his understanding of truth. So I want to share something from Judge Thomas Troward. No, I don't. I'm going to in a minute. But I got to move through this little piece first. Boy, see what happens when I don't check my notes? All right, it's okay. Everything's good. What I want to talk about are the three aspects of how we deal with the top of that circle, that invisible part. How does that manifest itself? Do we just have random thoughts out of nowhere? Maybe. It's always good to have a new thought. Oh, golly, they called this thing that we're involved in new thought. Wouldn't it be good to have a new thought now and again? Most of our thoughts are not new. Most of our thoughts have been in our mind over and over and over and over again. But this is a way of understanding how that creative causation occurs. Cause is at the top of the circle. Effect or conditions are at the bottom of the circle. So we're going to talk about cause, and these three aspects begin with universal first cause. These are Troward's words. Universal first cause. What is that? That's how the universe works. That's how the sun appears to come up every morning and go down every evening. You know it's not doing that. You know that it's the rotation of the earth. We're moving. I mean, the sun's moving too, but not in that direction. Anyway, the sun, the moon, the tides, the cosmos, everything about the physical form of the creative universe is that universal first cause, because you can't do anything about it. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not. You can stand out there and scream for the sun not to come up in the morning. It's going to come up anyway. The universe has got that handled. The divine, the absolute, has all of that part of it handled. So it's true that you can't change it, but at the same time, you don't have to worry about it. It's handled. All right? So that part we know. So what comes after that? Well, it's called relative first cause. And it's called relative because it's exactly what you're creating in your life. It's relative to you. It has to do with your thinking, your specific thinking, and how those thoughts and those beliefs that you have are creating your experience of life. That's relative to you. Now, the interesting thing about these two ideas of universal and relative is that it's all the same law. It's all the same creative initiation. And it's creating a result in both cases. The only difference is scale. And it's kind of nice that we don't have to work together to get the sun to come up in the morning. It's nice that we don't have to deal with those things. But we do, if we're paying attention, need to deal with our lives and with how we are impressing upon the law things that are being created in our world. That's our work all the time, without exception. And if we go back to that picture that I showed you, the graphic at the beginning, my guess is if that little stick figure person that was there actually got what they were doing, they probably wouldn't do it. And isn't that the case in our lives? That we have regrets when things go wrong. Often, though, we immediately start looking around trying to find who to blame. There's nobody but us. All those people that come into our lives and drive us a little crazy, we did that. We invited them in. We're the ones that caused them to be there. It's not their fault. And it's, I don't even want to say it's our fault. It's just the way it works. And we're going to get it every time without exception. So these two ideas of first cause are the same first cause. They're just what we have dominion over and what we don't have dominion over. It's important to understand those two ideas and how they're different. Now, this whole idea of causation gets funky. Troward comes up with this idea, secondary cause. Secondary cause, what's that? Well, go back to the graphic. The guy pushes over the first block. Did he push the second block? No. But did his pushing the first block cause the second block to happen? And on and on and on and on and on. And all those things that are falling along there are secondary causation. They're the same thing in that they are causing something to happen in the environment. We feel very disconnected from it, and then we're totally surprised when it whacks us. And we think we had nothing to do with it. But we have to do with everything in all cases. And there's some important things to say about this idea. Now, the quote from Troward that I thought I was going to next, and it relates to this idea of secondary cause, and this is, whoops, no, where's my notes? It's right there. Secondary causation, look at this. You recognize it? It looks upside down? No, this explains secondary causation because it starts with something happening in physical form. It starts there, and what happens is we observe it. We observe it at the top because that's where our consciousness is, at the top of this model. And then what do? We assume that thing that we saw that was secondary causation is the way life works, and now we're doing it by first cause. We're saying that's the way it is. And now we're creating it over and over and over and over again. You get it? We're always involved in it. So secondary causation really is not happening from our environment, from the conditions in our lives. Secondary causation happens because we see something and we buy into it. That's how it shows up. That's how it shows up. Finally, I'm going to show you Troward's quote, because it really is next in my notes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There it is. Let me read this with me. If we regard the fulfillment of our purpose to be contingent upon any circumstances, past, present, or future, we are not making use of first cause. We have descended to the level of secondary causation, which is the region of doubts, fears, limitation, all of which we are impressing upon universal subjective mind, the law, with the inevitable result that it will build up corresponding external conditions. I know, Troward used big words, and that's one sentence. But it's really, really, really important to understand that when we see stuff happen in the world, it's neutral. Whatever it is, it's neutral until we give it meaning. And when we give it meaning, now we're at first cause, and we're causing it to happen again. And what we're doing, as he says here, is we are impressing upon the law with the inevitable result that we are building up this to happen again and to happen more to us. Examples of secondary causation: the pandemic, the economy, government, politics, elections, crime. Most of us have no direct activity with these things other than we respond to them or we react to them. The pandemic's at the top because that's the big one on everybody's mind these days. How long do I have to wear a mask? How long do I have to, can I not do the things that I want to do? How long do I have to stay away? How long? We're all frustrated. We're all tired of it. We're all ready to get back to something that's a much more enjoyable way of being in the world. Yet here we are with a pandemic. So how do we deal with that? Do we make it a problem? If we make it a problem in our lives, it will be a problem. It will get so hard. And some of you know that already. You've made it hard. I've made it hard at times. You know, you should have seen me in the board meeting. I'm not talking about that. The economy. The economy is happening. I've told this story before, but I want to do it again because it fits too perfectly. I was talking to a dentist at a meeting in Houston decades ago. I don't remember when it was, but I was at some kind of a conference or something. And we were sitting having a meal, and I said to him, I didn't know who he was, we were just meeting. I said, so how is the economy affecting your practice, your dental practice? And he said, what economy? I said, what? He said, well, you know, I have patients. They book time with me. They come in, I work on their teeth, I fix their teeth, they pay the bill, and where's the economy? I thought, that's brilliant. He's not caught up in the economy. So he was not believing in the second causation of the economy. He wasn't going to do that. He was going to say, I create my success. And in that, there was nothing to argue about or feel bad about the economy. So when you hear things about the economy on the television or on your radio in your car or wherever you might collect information off the internet, whatever, be careful not to buy into stuff. Because when you buy into stuff, you end up with the problem as you. And then you'll keep doing it until you make a conscious choice not to, which is much harder. It's really easy to go, yeah, that's a problem. It's much, much easier just not to buy in than it is at the end of it after you've been dealing with it all this time. I told you the story about someone that recently told me I should retire. They thought I should retire because I was complaining about how tired I was. Who was doing that? Not her. She was just my mirror. What was going on is that I was complaining, and what I got as a result is someone very close to me that I love very much said to me, you really should retire. Get somebody else in here. Ha ha, I'm not ready. Well, then stop complaining. Politics, elections, all of that stuff, same exact thing. Last line, anything else you think could affect you? Anything. If you buy into it, it becomes a secondary causation in your life and then a primary first cause because you've bought it and now you're creating it. My favorite story about this, it's not a story so much, but it's an image of a child watching her parents fight, have arguments, disagree. What is a 4-year-old going to get from that? That's the way relationships are. What are the chances that 4-year-old, when they're 20-something, gets into a relationship and fights all the time? I'd say about 100% chance of that because that's their image of relationship and they've accepted that. Now, this child was not her parents, but she took what she saw her parents do and she internalized it and turned it into first cause so that whatever relationship she's in is going to be like that. Anybody here marry their mother or their father in who they chose to be with? Yeah, y'all are just not being honest because that happens all the time because we buy into that's the way it is. And everything else in our lives works the same way. So it's important for us to understand this idea of causation and how it works and what it is. Okay. I have another. I think that was just to give me a breath. All right, and to remind us of what an interesting graphic that is. I'm still in love with this graphic. All right, let's see where we're going here. Yes, Dr. Raymond Charles Barker was the founding minister of the church, the Religious Science Church in New York City. Amazing guy. He wrote these words the day before he made his transition. Be still and know what the world doesn't know. We are consciousness experiencing ideas. Now, he'd been in this work for a long time, and he was retired when he had that thought. So what that tells me, first of all, is we don't stop integrating this teaching into us ever. Even to our last breath, there's more to understand. But conceptualizing that, the idea that we are consciousness, we're at the top of the circle. We're invisible. We are not our bodies. We are pure spirit, pure consciousness. And in being pure consciousness, everything we experience comes from an idea. Everything. And when we look at it as though it's solid and real, what we do is we limit ourselves, we imprison ourselves in that idea because it's not. Yeah, but I can touch it. I can pound on it. I can walk around it and see it from different angles. Sure you can. You can do all those things. That doesn't mean it's going to have to always be that way. It's only that way because you're choosing to see it that way. If you want to see it differently, it will look differently, and you will get a different result without exception. Barbara's the perfect example of that for me. I tell you, I was lost when she got a diagnosis of cancer. I was lost in it. And I really did lean on our practitioners. And I know I got some help with that from one of my colleagues out on the West Coast, who, when I called and asked her to know for Barbara that she would make it through the surgery right after she had the stroke, I said, I can't get there right now. And this colleague said to me, you don't have to get there. Let me do that. That's not your job. Your job is to love Barbara. Let me know the truth. So I trusted my practitioners to know the truth. And I'll tell you, when I heard that doctor say, yes, it is really possible, remission is possible, it was like, that was them. That was their loving knowing that made that so. So if you can't get there on your own, if you can't find your way on your own, you got to be with one of these people. You gotta know that they can do this, because they're not caught up in your problem. They can really help. It's quite amazing. Our beloved Laura, say it again? Cleveland, yes, is having surgery tomorrow. And she's so clearly called. Or she texted me and she said, could you get the practitioners to know that this goes well for me? And I said, of course. I said, do you want me to come to the hospital? What time are you getting there? She said, 6 a.m. I said, you want me there? She said, no, you don't have to come. Treatment works from anywhere. She's so right. Where we know the truth, it's not a locality thing. Where we know the truth, it is known everywhere. And it's so powerful. So we're knowing that Laura's going to have a very easy task of this. Bless her, she's gone through enough. So here's the idea of Raymond Charles Barker. He said something else that might help you get past this idea of falling into the trap of secondary causation. He said, yesterday ended last night. Yesterday ended last night. So quit acting like it's yesterday. Quit bringing yesterday's ideas into today. God, that's the beauty of this thing, is you can change it like that. In a heartbeat, you can change your thought, and that must change the experience you're having, the condition you're having. Does it happen instantly? Sometimes. And sometimes it takes a while. But it doesn't matter. It'll still happen. If you can be clear and know the truth, or if you can rely on a practitioner to know the truth with you. Either way, it works. It's the nature of this teaching. It's the nature of life. It's how it works. Dr. Barker said one other thing. It's not by accident that I'm leaving him up this long. He writes, we are spirit, but we seldom recognize the truth about ourselves. And seldom do we open up all the doorways of our thought in complete acceptance. Let the doorways be open in us so that the Christ consciousness, the invisible guest within every person, will prevail. I know this invisible guest within me. The divine presence that I am will act in harmony and peace, in poise and love, and in cooperation, because God cannot fail, and because the divine presence within me is God as my real self. I know there is a power flowing through me, my word, flowing through my word, which makes straight the way before me. So I invite you, make straight the way before you by knowing what is your best and living from that and dropping the rest of it along the way. And being as that we've talked about the pandemic several times today, I have a quote that speaks to it from our founder. We are not going through a harder time today, a longer or darker night than has ever been experienced before. It only seems darker when we forget who we are. Remember who we are and live above it Know the truth of who you are and work from first cause. That thought that you know is what's best for you. And let the rest of it fall away. And God prevails, as always. I love you very much. Thank you.